Hello, my name is Amalia Zeichnerin. As you can hear from my accent, I am not a native speaker, and today I want to read my fanfiction, Beau and the Beast. Once upon a time, there was a prince living a lavish lifestyle in his castle in the heart of France. One day, as he was having a party, an old poor woman asked for shelter from the bitter cold. But the prince was arrogant, selfish, and unkind, so he rejected her. She told him not to be deceived by appearances, because true beauty lies within. But he only laughed and told her to leave. But the woman was an enchantress. She cursed the cruel man, his castle, and all of his servants. The prince got transformed into a hideous beast. She gave him an enchanted rose and told him, "If you cannot find someone to love you before the last petal falls, you and your servants shall be cursed forever." With these words, she left the castle. The woods near it became a cold winter landscape all year long, full of hungry, terrifying wolves, and a lot of frost and snow. Because of the curse, the rest of the world forgot about the prince and his castle. "How long has it been?" Beau quietly asked Mr. Cogsworth, who kept a track of time at all times. The poor fellow had been transformed into a clock. "Oh, my dear boy, it has been over 3 years now, since that horrible night when we all got cursed." Beau shuddered. He still could not get used to the fact that he had been transformed into a mirror, like a bad joke about people who checked their looks all of the time, or like in that fairy tale of Snow White, with the evil stepmother who was obsessed with her own beauty. It wasn't Beau's fault that he had been a handsome man, and that his name literally meant beautiful in French. The prince had been handsome too. If he was honest, Beau had felt attracted to the man the moment he had laid eyes on him. Those piercing icy blue eyes, and the shiny brown golden hair. But looks alone didn't matter to Beau. The prince had been arrogant and unkind so often. Frequently he had ordered Beau, his personal servant, around like a slave. Beau liked serving, he really did. He was a bit submissive, always had been. But he also liked to be treated kindly, and the prince had been lacking that quality very much. Beau sighed. He was now a hand mirror, but the magic inside the castle made it possible for him to also have arms, hands, legs and feet, made of silver, like the frame of the mirror, and he could move around. "A penny for your thoughts, my friend," said Mr. Cogsworth. "It's nothing, just a short trip down memory lane," Beau replied. No one here knew about his complicated feelings for the prince. The beast, he corrected himself silently. Everything had changed since that night. Well, not everything. Mrs. Potts still reigned in the household, now as a teapot, and she kept a close eye on her son Chip, a teacup. Lumiere cared for a proper lighting, and other servants kept the place tidy and shiny. Among them was Lumiere's girlfriend Plumette, who had been turned into a feather duster. They all still felt the necessity to serve their master, though he had told them more than once that there was no need for it. Not any more. Beau wasn't able to be much of assistance to the beast. He was too small now. He could no longer help his master dress, trim his hair and beard, or clean his shoes. So His Highness did all of that by himself now. But from time to time, the beast looked into the mirror glass with an expression of pain. He then sighed, and Beau almost felt pity for the creature. What had become of him? What had become of them all? I feel like our master has changed, he now said to Mr. Cogsworth. What do you mean, Beau? The clock asked him. He has become kinder to us. Mr. Cogsworth looked at Beau thoughtfully. Yes, I notice it too. Maybe it is because we are the only ones who keep him company these days. No more lavish parties. No more travels to other kingdoms and castles. Yes, we all share the same fate. More or less, I mean. But don't you think he has suffered enough now? Mr. Cogsworth sneered. Huh, don't tell me. Tell the enchantress who's responsible for all of this. We all have suffered enough, if you ask me. I wish someone would come here and break that horrible curse. I checked. There are only a few petals left on that magical rose. And what if... Beau stopped. What if what, my friend? Lumiere asked, who joined them in the corridor. The candelabra had 3 candles burning and a bright smile on his face. He was always so optimistic, despite all the gloom in the castle. Oh, it's nothing, Beau replied. Silently, he scorned himself. What had he been thinking? He could not tell them that he secretly felt a bit attracted to the beast. After all, he might be a mirror, but he was still a man. And a man loving another man, that was unheard of in these parts of the world, wasn't it? But that wasn't the only problem. He also was a servant, and the beast was still his master. There was no way they ever could have any kind of romantic relationship, cursed or not. Let's hope for the best, dear friends, Lumiere said, smiling. Nothing is lost yet. Oh, by the way, Monsieur Cadenza has invited us to a concert tonight in the ballroom. Care to join me? He's going to start soon. Monsieur Cadenza had often visited the prince. He was a composer, but had been turned into a harpsichord in the night of the curse. He tried to make the best of it, often treating the servants to some lovely music. The beast never visited these concerts. Maybe because they would painfully remind him of better days? You go, I'll check on His Highness, Beau said. As you wish. Mr. Cogsworth and Lumiere sauntered down the staircase. Beau went in the opposite direction, up the stairs to the next floor. Suddenly he tripped over his own silver feet and crashed down on one of the stairs. He heard the glass of the mirror breaking, before the pain pierced through him like ice on a frosty night in the middle of winter. Shards flew left and right, and suddenly his vision was gone. Everything went dark. He wasn't even able to cry out for help. Beau didn't know how long he lay face down on the stairs, unable to move. Suddenly, he heard the familiar low growl of the beast. The creature sounded worried. Beau, what happened to you? Beau wanted to answer, but couldn't. After a moment, the beast said, I'm going to fix you. I have some glue in the workshop next to the stable. That should do the trick. I hope. When the beast picked him up, Beau felt dizzy. But the feeling passed. The warm hand of the beast felt comfortable. But he was still aching all over and couldn't see anything. If at least he had been able to speak. Beau felt the soft movements of the beast's hand and heard his footsteps on the cold marble floor. Then the sensation of cold wind rushed over his silver frame as the beast stepped outside. Where is that glue? The beast muttered quietly a few minutes later, rummaging around in the workshop. Here the servants kept all sorts of tools for repairing broken things. Beau heard the clattering of glass shards against each other. Don't worry, the beast said softly. I'm quite sure this will work. Some time later, the dark that had fallen over Beau's vision suddenly shifted. he could see again. The beast looked at him thoughtfully. "Can you speak now?" he wanted to know. Beau tried. His voice returned, though it sounded coarse and ragged, like the broken glass pieces which were now assembled again, held together by the glue the beast had found. Thanks, Your Highness." The beast gave him a stern look. "You know what? I'm done with this, addressing me as Your Highness. I haven't been a prince now for over 3 years. I am done with that title." "But how shall I address you then?" "My name is Jerome. Actually, I have a few more names, but you can call me Jerome. I'm going to tell the other servants too." Beau's confusion grew. "But we are your servants. We must adhere to protocol." The beast, no, Jerome, laughed disdainfully. "There is no need for this damn protocol. Not anymore." Beau didn't understand this change of heart. But his master's wish was his command, so he said, "As you wish, Jerome." "All right, after we have settled that, how about your vision, Beau? Can you see me clearly?" "Clear as day." Beau let go a sigh of relief. Jerome smiled. "That's great. Do you feel any pain?" Beau sighed again. "Yes, crashing against that stair. I guess I have to lay down for a while. I'm sorry for causing you this trouble." Jerome waved that off. "Don't worry about it. I am glad that nothing worse has happened." Suddenly, he reached out and touched Beau's silver frame. He caressed it like the skin of a lover. Beau felt warmth creeping into his glassy face and into the frame. He had never been touched before by His Highness. No, by Jerome, he quietly reminded himself. And he longed for more, so much more. But Jerome backed away as suddenly as he had touched Beau, as if he had done something forbidden. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "What was I thinking?" "I actually liked it," Beau blurted out. "You did?" Beau could not comprehend the look on Jerome's hairy face. Was he annoyed, or pleased, or utterly confused? It was hard to tell. "I have dreamt about being touched by you," Beau admitted quietly. "Ever since I came here to be your servant." "But I am a beast, and you are a mirror. There is no future for us." Beau felt a flash of courage moving through his silver frame, and asked, "If you were still a man, and I was too, could there then be a future for us?" Jerome didn't answer. Sternly he looked at Beau. "I don't know. I have always thought that at some point I would need to do my duty and marry a princess. Or not a princess, but a woman, start a family and so on, to have an heir to the throne later. But no woman has come here since the night of the curse. No woman has ever told me that she loves me. So I guess I will die alone as a beast someday." There were so many words and feelings welling up inside of Beau. He wanted so badly to tell Jerome that he wasn't alone. He had his servants, and they were loyal to him, even after all that had happened. And in this very moment, Beau realized that he felt more for Jerome than a servant should feel for his master. 3 years of suffering had changed the beast. His arrogance and selfishness had gone. They had made way for melancholy and sadness. Also anger at some times, but even that had shifted. But Beau couldn't say out loud what was on his mind. Jerome would surely just laugh at him for this ridiculous idea. Two men couldn't love each other. It wasn't in the protocol of this castle, and it surely was not in the ways of society of this country either. And the curse? Surely a woman was needed to fall in love with Jerome. Then the curse could be broken, not by a mirror who once had been a servant. The beast still looked at him. I see myself in you, Beau. But what I see, I despise. You are better than me. You are all better than me. Beau couldn't utter a single word. His heart was full of words he mustn't say. Jerome smiled. Let's go back to the castle. There you can rest, Beau. And rest was surely a thing he needed after all that had happened. Thank you. Thank you, Jerome. That evening, after Beau had had a bit of rest and felt better, there was a knock on the large front door. This had never happened before, and it sent the servants into a frenzy. Jerome came into the entrance hall, demanded silence with a wave of his hand, and everyone became quiet. He looked from one to the other. Whoever is out there demanding entry, they must not know that you are enchanted. So stand still. Beau did as he was told. He climbed onto a side table and remained there, seemingly nothing more than a hand mirror with an ornate frame. The other servants also followed the order. Lumiere and Mr. Cogsworth joined Beau on the side table. When there was complete silence, Jerome opened one of the two massive double doors. From his reclining position, Beau couldn't see who was standing in front of the door, but he could hear what they were saying. Excuse me, sir. I got caught in a storm, and it's bitterly cold. I lost my way in the forest. May I dare to ask you for your hospitality for the night? Jerome did not answer immediately. Finally, his voice rang out, a deep rumble. But just this one night, I'll take you to a guest room, but you mustn't leave until morning, and under no circumstances will you wander around the castle. Do you understand me? Yes, I understand. Very kind of you, sir. And so it came to pass that an old man spent the night in the castle. Their first guest in over 3 years. Beau would have loved to ask him questions about the outside world. He had always dreamed of traveling. But since the enchantment, the world seemed far too big and hostile to him, and too dangerous for a hand mirror. The following morning, from his place on the side table, Beau could hear the man saying goodbye to Jerome in the entrance hall. Fortunately, the storm had calmed down overnight. Sir, I have one more request. My daughter Belle asked me to bring her a rose from my trip. I saw some rose bushes in your gardens. Would you mind if I— No, Jerome said with a low grumble. The old man now sounded quite intimidated and replied hastily, Oh, that's all right. I apologize, and thank you for your hospitality, sir. I don't want to keep you any longer. Go, Jerome demanded. Yes, of course. Seconds later, the door crashed into the lock. The enchanted servants began to move, and Beau climbed off the side table with his silver legs. Your Highness, began Mrs. Potts, who had rolled in with a tea trolley. Don't address me with that title from now on, demanded the beast. My name is Jerome, and that's how I want to be called from now on. Oh, that's, as you wish, Jerome. Mrs. Potts seemed confused for a moment, but quickly regained her composure and continued. Our guest said he had a daughter. What a pity you didn't invite them both here. It might have been a good opportunity. I mean, Jerome raised a defensive hand with his dark claws, and she fell silent. A good opportunity for what? Who would ever look at me and see me as anything other than a monster? Certainly not a young woman from a village. But someone much closer to you, Beau thought. But he could not. He must not say that out loud, not in front of the other servants. But even if he found an opportunity to speak to Jerome alone, how would he react? Beau had poured out his heart already to him, but he seemed to not see any future for the two of them. A day passed and turned into evening. Beau was in the kitchen playing with Chip, when suddenly loud cries could be heard. Intruders! They are coming with torches and weapons! Where is Jerome? We must protect ourselves! Mrs. Potts rushed into the kitchen on the tea trolley. Chip, my dear boy, you must hide, now, Chip said. But Mum, I want to help. No, you're too young and small. End of discussion, she said with a frown. Chip didn't seem pleased, but he obeyed and jumped into one of the cupboards. Beau's glassy heart was racing. Is Jerome... Do you know where he is, Mrs. Potts? No, sorry. Please, fill me up with hot water, Beau. That will teach those intruders a lesson. Beau did as he had been told, and then followed the angry teapot into the entrance hall, where chaos had erupted. There were angry folks, with all sorts of weapons, daggers and sabres, pitchforks, and even kitchen pans. Why had they come to the castle, which seemed to have been forgotten by the whole world? A handsome man with dark hair, dressed in a blood-red and golden uniform, yelled, Where is the beast? I'm going to kill it! He had a long rapier in his hand. Beau felt cold, and it was not because of the glass of his mirror body. Had the old man who had stayed overnight told the villagers about the beast? He had to warn Jerome. The servants had started to fight back against the angry mob. Lumiere set fire to the hat of a man who started screaming. Mrs. Potts spilled hot water over another guy. Near them, another servant, who had been transformed into an armchair, buried a shrieking woman underneath himself. Beau started running down the corridor, which branched off the entrance hall. Where was Jerome? Suddenly he got picked up by the man with the blood-red uniform and the rapier. Take me to the beast, your enchanted mirror! I demand it, now! No! Beau screamed. If you don't, I am going to smash you into so many little fragments that you will never see the light of day again. Beau was afraid for Jerome, but he was even more afraid of dying. The beast will be able to kill this man, he thought. After all, the former prince was huge and strong. Jerome! Beau cried out. The castle is under attack! They reached the staircase which led to the west wing, the forbidden wing. There were only a few torches burning here in some of the cast iron candle holders at the walls. This space of the castle was always quite dark and gloomy. The beast came running towards them now, down the stairs, his mane dishevelled, his eyes wild with anger. He was unarmed. You monster! The angry man shouted at him. He let go of Beau, who fell towards the stony floor. Seconds before the crash, the mirror was able to stop his fall with his tiny hands. He turned around and saw how the uniformed man attacked Jerome with his rapier. Both of them whirled around, almost like lovers in a wild dance. Again and again the man with the black hair shouted hateful things. Beau ran towards him, jumped at his feet, trying to pull the man's boots. But he wasn't strong enough to make him fall. Beau stumbled to the ground and coughed. What on earth could he do to help the beast? Jerome took cover from the blows of the rapier. But the man in the uniform was well trained and knew exactly what he was doing. Beau tried to jump on the man's back but missed as the guy suddenly made a lunge to the right. Beau gasped as he hit the floor once more. Jerome cried out in pain and fell. Horrified, Beau watched blood flowing from the chest of the beast, where a large hole had been torn into his waistcoat. Slowly, his eyes closed. His opponent let out a triumphant cry. He didn't wait to see if his victim was really dead. Instead, he ran in the direction of the entrance hall, yelling, "The beast is dead! I killed the beast!" Beau went over to Jerome. If he had not been a mirror, tears would have rushed over his face, for sure. "Please, don't die, Jerome." The former prince lay very still. Trembling with despair, Beau touched his hairy hand. It felt cold, so very cold. Was it the coldness of death? "Please, I need you," he begged. His voice was coarse now. "Don't go. Don't leave me." Jerome didn't move. Neither of them saw it, but in this very moment, the last petal of the enchanted rose fell to the ground. And Beau finally spoke his heart. "I love you." A moment passed, then another one. Beau registered that the noise of the battle in the entrance hall had died down. But that didn't matter now. Everything was lost, because he had lost his love. Suddenly, a glowing golden light surrounded the creature, and a strange magical wind took hold of him, lifting his body into the air. Beau gasped in astonishment. What on earth was happening here? In the next moment he felt an unfamiliar pain rushing through his slender frame, and the light became so bright that he couldn't see anything else but glowing white. When it got dark again, he blinked. Something had changed. He looked down, caught sight of his hand. But it was no longer a tiny silver one, but a human one. He looked down. There were his feet, his chest, his legs. Once again he was wearing his servant's clothes. "Beau," a familiar voice. He looked up, and there he was. Jerome stood in front of him, in his bloody clothes, no longer a beast. He was human again, after all these years. Beau took a step towards him, then another one. Jerome opened his arms and embraced him. "I love you," he whispered against Beau's ears. When he let go of the embrace, both looked at each other in awe. Neither one of them spoke. But they were so close now, and it felt so right, for the first time. Beau leaned forward and kissed Jerome. The former beast answered this with tenderness. Beau wished this kiss would never end. But of course it had to at some point. He finally withdrew himself. "Thank you," Jerome quietly said. "You have ended the curse." Beau shook his head. "We both have. Because it is not only I who loves you. You love me too." Jerome smiled, and this sent a warm spark into Beau's chest. "Let's go into the entrance hall. I think the fight is over." Together they went to see what had happened. In the hall, a crowd of happy servants was chatting, embracing each other, crying with joy. Some, like Lumiere and Plumette, were kissing each other. They all were human again. The curse was finally over, for everyone. Beau looked around. There were some broken pieces of furniture and a torn rug. A curtain had caught fire, as the charred fabric showed, but it had been extinguished, and there were no signs of the intruders. They must have fled, Beau thought, even that horrible man with the blood-red uniform. Or maybe they had all gone back to their village to celebrate the alleged death of the beast. When Jerome entered the hall behind Beau, everyone started to bow and curtsy. "Your Highness, how wonderful! Mr. Cogsworth said, beaming. Jerome waved one hand. No more, Your Highness, please. My days as a prince are over. But who has broken the curse? Lumiere wondered. Jerome held out his hand to Beau, who gladly took it. His heart beat faster as Jerome started to speak. Please, listen up, everyone. I would like to say a few words. Beau and I are in love. Thus the curse is over. I know that Beau has been my servant, as you all have been, but I don't want this any more. You are sending us away? Lumiere asked, horrified. Jerome shook his head. No, I don't want to be a prince anymore. I was born as one, but no one ever asked me if I wanted to have this title. I was steeped in privilege. But you, and I mean all of you, have taught me something over the past 3 years about kindness and friendship. You have stayed here with me, though I was a beast, and this has changed a lot for me. I have changed, and I have a plan. You can all live here, if you want to, but no longer as my servants, as my equals. His voice got firm, and he smiled. We can serve each other, as a community. I also want to travel the country and find other outcasts, the ones who live on the fringe of society, the ones who get bullied by their neighbors, the weirdos who seem to don't fit in, and the queers who are unwelcome in other places. This castle is so big, there is a lot of room for more people. This is my plan. If you want to leave, you're all free to go. What do you say? For a moment, there was silence. It was so quiet that you could have heard a pin drop on the floor. After a few seconds, Lumiere clapped his hands. Others followed, until everyone was applauding the prince, who did not want to be one anymore. 1 year later. Good morning, my love, Jerome said to Beau as he opened his eyes. They both lay in the large bed of the former prince, and the sun shone brightly into the bedroom. Jerome caressed Beau's cheek, and they kissed. And as always, they sent warm sparks of joy into Beau's body. Do you remember what day it is today? Beau asked, as they let go of each other. Jerome laughed. Of course I do. How could I forget a party? No, seriously, it has been 1 year since that curse had been broken, and I could not be happier. He seemed lost in thought for a moment. You know, I thought I was happy back in the days when I was a prince. I thought life was a party, all this decadence, and the selfish way I treated you and the other servants back then. I feel ashamed when I think about this now. Beau shook his head. There is no need for that. You have changed a lot since then. Yes, true, but still. His thoughtful expression faded, and he smiled at Beau. Anyhow, I'm glad we were able to travel the country. They had done this together for almost a year, and in the cities and villages they had visited, they had found people in trouble. A fat young man who got bullied by his so-called friends. A witch who had fled from her village into the woods because the villagers suspected that she performed evil magic, which she didn't. Beau and Jerome had also met a lesbian couple who had unaccepting families. In another village, they encountered a disabled old woman whose children saw her merely as a burden, and a girl who heard voices in her head. A blind violinist whom they had heard play in a street in Paris. All these people had decided to join Jerome and Beau, so they returned with them to the castle. And here they all now lived as equals and cared for each other, like friends, like a huge found family. Everyone contributed to the community as it was possible for them. Some worked in the extensive gardens, growing vegetables, fruit, corn, and grain. Others took care of mending and repairing. They took turns with cooking and baking, with cleaning and other chores of the large household. And some contributed with their art, with poetry or music, painting or dancing. They regularly had a council in the community discussing problems and conflicts. And so far, they always had found solutions and compromises that worked for them. Their anniversary party started at sunset. A light breeze blew through the open windows on this summer's eve, and there was the fragrant smell of the rose bushes near the castle. Garlands of colorful flowers were hanging in the ballroom, which smelled just as sweet. All the inhabitants of the castle gathered there. Monsieur Cadenza sat at his beloved harpsichord, the blind violinist played his instrument, and the renowned opera singer Madame de Garderobe, whom they had invited for tonight, started to sing while the disabled old woman started drumming a soft beat on her drums next to the harpsichord. Soon all the others were on the dance floor, in rows and circles, in pairs and squares. The two women who were in love had decided who would lead and who would follow. The girl with the voices in her head danced on her own, then with the witch. Plumette laughed merrily as Lumiere bowed deep before her, always the gentleman. Beau and Jerome circled around each other in the middle of the room, with the fancy dancing steps that Jerome had taught his former servant. Beau's heart was beating fast, and it wasn't just because of the dance. He looked into the face of his beloved, who smiled at him, entranced. "I love you," Beau whispered as they got closer in the dance. "And I you," Jerome answered and put his hands on Beau's chest, just for a second, where his heart was beating. "Do you remember when I told you that I see myself in you?" Beau blinked, slightly confused. "Yes, but I was a mirror then." "Yes, of course. I have gone to the library room yesterday, and I started reading a bit. And in one of the books I found a lovely quote." In their dance another turn was in order, but in the next moment they moved towards each other again, and Jerome continued. "It went like this, my dear. I love you not only for what you are, but for what I am when I am with you. I love you not only for what you have made of yourself, but for what you are making of me. I love you for the part of me that you bring out." Beau thought about this for a moment. Jerome said, "So, you see, when I look at you, I still see myself in a way. You reflect this to me, even though you're not a mirror anymore. When I look at you, I realize what you have made me. A better man." Beau wanted to object, wanted to point out that the former beast had changed all by himself during these 3 years of sadness and despair. But then he thought perhaps the other servants and him had had a part in it after all. Had their loyalty and friendship helped to change the beast's attitude over time? At this moment, the music stopped, and he realized this dance was over. Jerome leaned forward, his bright blue eyes sparkling. They kissed. A soft, yet passionate kiss that sent Beau's heart flying. And the two men, with their community of former servants, outcasts, disabled folks, and queers, lived happily ever after. Thank you for listening.